Hello, everyone. You're listening to the Small Business Show. My name is Swire Ho from Garuda Promo, your host for the show. My guest today is Nicky Billou from eCircle Academy. Nicky, it seems like he's number one at doing everything. Not only he is known as the $1 million maker, he's also the number one international bestseller for 8 books. And he also has his own podcast, who's also number one in the world for thought leadership. And he is a in demand international speaker to corporate audience. How you doing, Nicky?
Swire, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show. It's an honor to be here.
Great. I have a lot of questions for you. For a listener who might not yet be familiar with you and your work, what should we know about you?
That's a fantastic question. So I'll tell you a little bit my background story. So I'm actually originally from the Middle East. I'm an immigrant from the Middle East. I'm a Christian from Iran. When I was a young boy, the Islamic Revolution was happening in Iran, and the government of the Shah, which was a bit of a benign dictatorship, gave way to a full-on tyranny led by the mullahs. And my late father, God rest his soul, he could see this was not going to be a great place to raise his family. So he got us out of Iran and brought us to Canada, where we now live. And Swire, every single day I thank God for my father to take us out of that environment and put us into this environment. We went from tyranny to freedom. And I don't know how much you've been following the news about Iran in the last few months, but a young woman was arrested and killed by the police over there for not wearing a headscarf. Think about this: you get killed for not wearing a headscarf. Like, that's the law. You got to wear a headscarf, and you can't show your skin either. Like, you got to be fully covered up as a woman. So, I feel very blessed and grateful to live in the West. And my father was also a believer in freedom. He was an entrepreneur. He believed in uplifting people. Swire, if you knew my dad and you were looking for work, he'd help you find a job. If you were trying to start a business, he'd help you start a business. Even if you were going to compete with him, he did not care about that. All he wanted to do was help people. And if you were someone who worked for him and you were trying to buy a car, a house, an apartment, and you didn't have enough money, Dad would make up the difference. And you might go think to yourself, wow, who does that? Well, the late, great Napoleon Billou, that's who and why. Well, first of all, he was a very, devout Christian, and he believed as a Christian he'd been blessed by God, and it was his duty to share those blessings with others. Secondly, he did it because he could. He had the money. He had the wherewithal to be able to help people. Dad employed over 60 people, and he used to come home and tell me, son, did you know we fed 60 families this week? And he was very proud of that. For me, I wanted to be like my dad when I grew up. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to help people. I loved who he was. And so I got into business. That was my desire. And the type of business I got into was, advisory and coaching and workshops and conferences, all about providing services to help people become better, become stronger in life and in business. So that really was the long and the short of it, of what we did in getting into business, was all modeled after the example of my father. And, a lot of the people that I help tend to be people that are newer to business. They don't know business too well. Maybe they're a little bit afraid of business, scared of selling, scared of marketing. Like, they don't want to come across as pushy, salesy. You know what I'm talking about? So I kind of saw that, and I thought, what if we can help them look at it from a different angle, reframe selling to serving? Well, nobody likes to be sold by a pushy salesman, right? But everybody likes to be served. Everybody likes to buy. So that's basically, what I started to do is I started to help good entrepreneurs have a service mindset rather than a sales mindset. And that helped them double, triple, quadruple their sales right away.
Thanks for sharing the powerful story. And I actually have a lot of follow-up questions for it. One of the things that you put it in the talking point is the importance of freedoms and free enterprise. You touch on some of it, but in the Western world, for example, why is it important to maintain that?
Well, a lot of people that are born here, I don't think they appreciate the freedom that they have. You know what I mean? They don't realize that in the rest of the world, many places, they're not this free. Like in my country of Iran, if you speak out against the government, you can be killed. You know, if you don't do what they like, you can be killed. I mean, you saw what happened to this poor young woman, right? You know, you look at what's going on in China right now. They have something called the zero COVID policy. The people in China are demonstrating against this. They're going, we've had enough, right? And you know, the Chinese ruler, the dictator Xi Jinping, he said, yeah, forget about it. He's sending the police out there to crack heads, like just for saying, hey, we want to be able to go outside and live and do life regularly. And China is it's a proud civilization, a fantastic people there. And yet, even in a country like China, country like Iran, both very proud, old civilizations that have contributed so much to the world. You have governments where people are in charge, that they want to be in charge, they want to be in control, they don't want to give people a lot of room. So for us, I think it's important to understand that what we have here is pretty special, and we should try to do everything in our power, not try to, but do everything in our power to keep it and keep that freedom. And without freedom, you can't have free enterprise. You know what I mean? And, you could start a company, but the government could decide they don't like you and take your company away from you just because they don't like you. You know what I mean? You better have connections in order to do business. And that's not free enterprise. Free enterprise is whoever has the best ideas and the best execution should be able to win. So I believe that we need free enterprise. We need to stand up for freedom. We need to stand up for free enterprise. That's how you can become rich. Anyways, if you want to become rich and you're not yet rich, you'll only become rich if you stand for free enterprise. And my vision is I want to see 1 billion men and women become millionaires. You know what I mean? I've helped a few people become that, but nowhere near 1 billion. I'd love to help personally another dozen become millionaires next year in 2023. And I'd love to have a whole bunch of other people join me on, the quest to turn 1 billion millionaires out in the world.
Let's touch on that a little bit more. Your expertise is actually helping entrepreneur add 1 to 2 zeros to their monthly income while working 10 to 20 hours less per week. How does that work?
I'm glad you asked that. Well, the first step is you need to understand that business is not about numbers or money. It's about people. Now, someone listening to this may go, what are you talking about? Business is about money. But it's not. Business is about people. All business is about solving problems for people for profit. That's all. You solve acute problems for wonderful people for amazing profit. P, P, P. And all your focus when you go into business should be on doing that, on helping somebody who needs help, who's suffering because of a problem they're dealing with. If that is your focus in business, you will make a lot of money. But if your focus is, I just want to make a lot of money, ironically, that won't work so good, because people will sense that, and they'll sense you're only in it for the money. Unless they need your help, they're not going to want to work with you. And if they have other options, they'll go with those other options. It's very important for you to understand that that person in front of you, that's a human being. That's someone's brother, someone's father, someone's son, someone's mother, someone's daughter, someone's wife. That's a human being. You got to want to make a difference for that human being, right? Maybe they've been disappointed by life, or even disappointed by somebody like you in business who promised them everything and delivered them nothing. So make sure that you, first and foremost, come forward from wanting to make a difference for people. Does that make sense, Swire?
So would you say, we got to take a little bit more time to really understand the counterpart, right? The other person on the other line, or, from our point of view at the other screen. So would you say it's not a numbers game? It's you would rather them to understand the other person better instead of dialing 200 calls a day and then doesn't have any meaningful relationship.
Exactly. Now, you might have to dial 200 calls a day just to speak to one person, but you know what I mean? You need to have a vision that this person is someone you're here to help. It would be good if you maybe did a little meditation before you got on the phone with someone and say, okay, I'm going to be talking to Swire Ho, and I'm meditating that conversation is going to go well. We're going to connect. We're going to get along with each other. He's going to be very open with me about his problems. And if his problem is something that I can help with, I'm going to show him how I can help it. And we're going to do business together. And it's going to be good for him. And it's going to be good for me. If you meditate and visualize all this before you get on the phone, then the chances of having a wonderful conversation rise exponentially. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. But I think it seems like when I talk to, entrepreneur, they are somewhat happy and mold to the way that they like to do business with. And I think what you're talking about is kind of like a little bit out for their comfort zone. Now we're really taking the time, or maybe we're spending more time to build that relationship. Can you touch on about getting out of the comfort zone? How do we safely, right, getting out of a comfort zone to grow, and then in order to be better?
Well, the first thing you got to do is, if you take the attention off yourself and you put the attention on the other person and, what they need today, what is troubling them today, you will automatically get out of your comfort zone, because you won't be thinking about yourself. You'll be thinking about someone else. You know what I'm trying to say over here? That's the most important thing. When my father would say business is not about money or numbers, it's about people, that's what he meant. Is like, take the attention off of you, put the attention on the other person. My father was somebody, I'm telling you, Swire, people would talk to me like presidents of companies and janitors. They all would say similar things. They'd go, Mr. Billou is such a good man. You're his son. Like, I had people like come and like treat me like a king because of who my father was. People I'd never met, never known. And I said, listen, you don't need to do this. Come on, like, I appreciate it, but this is too much. And they go, no, you're Napoleon Billou's son. That's very important to me. That's what they tell me this all the time. But that's because that's how he treated them. He treated them like that. And it created a sense that it was the right thing to do to treat him like that. And even his relatives, which was pretty incredible to me. I was a boy. and that's what happened. So that's first and foremost. Secondly, you need to really focus on how to differentiate yourself. I had a conversation with a man the other day, and he said, be different or be dead. Be different or be dead. Your business will be different from everybody else's, or it will be dead. If you're stuck in that sea of sameness, you're never going to have anybody want to have anything to do with you. You know what I mean? We talk about thought leadership, right? Matt Church, who's someone that I've learned a lot from, says that thought leadership is different from expertise in this way. An expert's someone who knows something. A thought leader is someone who's known for knowing something. Experts are a dime a dozen. Thought leaders are rare and valuable. You want to be like a thought leader in your business, right? Be different or be dead. Be a thought leader, not an expert. It's pretty much different ways of saying the same thing. And if your message is like everybody else, if I ask you what you do and you go, well, I make gadgets for people. I do swag for businesses. I mean, that's nice, but everyone else says the same thing. You don't want to say that. You want to say, I help businesses stand out so customers remember them and do business with them more. Now, that's much more interesting than I do swag for people. You know what I'm saying? You need a powerful message. I'll give you an example from a client of mine. Okay, this is a good story. So this was a young man, and he was new in business. I normally didn't work with people brand new in business, but something about the guy I really liked, so I made an exception in this case, right? And I said, okay, what is it that you do? And he said, well, I'm a personal fitness trainer and coach. I help people lose weight. I help people get lean and fit. I help people go into competitions. I can do it all. And I was like, okay, buddy, that's nice, but that's not going to work. You can't do everything for everybody. You got to pick a lane, and you got to pick a focus. And he said, but you don't understand. I really can do it all. I can help anybody. And I'm like, anybody with a wallet and a pulse? He's like, funny. He said, but okay, yeah, I guess so. And I'm like, no, that's not good. Pick a lane. He goes, okay. I'm going to work with doctors. My dad's a doctor, and I love my dad. And doctors make a lot of money. So I can make a lot of money working with doctors. And I was like, oh my God, no, you're not getting it, buddy. This is not the way to pick. And obviously it didn't work because the message, you're a doctor, you make a lot of money, come work with me. Not a good message, right? So I said, we need to change this. He said, okay, you want me to get into a narrow lane? He said, okay, cardiologists, they make more money than doctors, man. And I'm like, oh my God, buddy's not getting it. Oh, what am I going to do here? And I said, it's not going to work. And he said, no, I'm going to try it. He tried it. It didn't work. Then all of a sudden, through sheer serendipity, he was introduced to a Paralympian, a fellow with a missing limb, missing leg since childhood. Childhood accident caused that. So him and this fellow, this is what happened. They worked together. It really worked out really well. He helped this guy get really strong. And this guy entered some competitions and won some medals, man. So it was a big deal, right? It was pretty cool. So he comes to me, this fellow, his name was Dan, the personal trainer. And he said, okay, Nicky, I think I'm finally getting what you're trying to tell me here. He said, you know what? Yeah, I'm getting it. This is great. This is fantastic. This is amazing. I shouldn't be going for the money. I should be going for the heart fulfillment. And he said, you know what? I love working with this guy. I think I want to work with people with missing limbs. I'm going to make them strong. I'm going to give them belief. I'm going to give them hope. And I said, okay, this is good. Go give this a shot. Swire, in 6 weeks, he signed up 400 clients. Wow. 400 in 6 weeks. He was making $1,200 a month. He added not 1 0, but 2 zeros. He made over $100,000 a month as a personal fitness trainer. You know, those guys don't make a lot of money. Most of them don't make $100,000 a year, never mind $100,000 a month. You know what I'm saying? And that's the power of a good message and of not focusing on the money, but focusing on the people.
Well, I want to ask you a follow-up question then. Obviously, that's a great niche to go in, and I'm glad that the personal trainer found, what he's really good at. For small business professional, for example, it would be nice to get into and ultimately find our ideal client, but in the beginning, it will be difficult, right? Especially if, we just started our business, we need the income, we need to sustain, right? So we can keep the lights on. Like, how would you guide them through that process to find really the message, and how long should they expect? Because if we don't get in small business, if they don't get income in a couple of months, a lot of them might go out of business.
I agree. The fastest way to get income is to find people who really need your help. Now, am I saying refuse business? Absolutely not. If someone wants to do business with you, do business with them. But your messaging should be focused at a very particular group with a very particular problem. You're a problem solver in business. That's what your job is. And if you are positioning yourself to be seen that way, it's going to work out really well.
Mm-hmm. You also talk about, for thought leadership. This is a word that I've been seeing a lot more. And I think a lot of us are trying to do that. How do you really, and you mentioned be different. I really like that. So you don't want to have the same message than someone maybe way bigger than you do, because if you're like a motivational speaker, you try to model Tony Robbins, it's going to be, you're not going to make it, right? It's so much bigger than you do. But obviously there are other areas that he didn't cover that, a lot of people are sold out for. So how would you guide us if we are started out to really find the niche that we are good at and, become the thought leader that people sold out for?
Well, I'll give you a few examples. Okay. And obviously, if you need to go into this more deeply, this is one of the reasons we offer the programs that we do to show you how to do that, because it can take longer than a few minutes. You know what I mean? But the first thing you ought to do is take a look at what kind of expertise you have. You know what I mean? What is it that you're actually good at? What can you help people do? Now, that doesn't mean that it has to be, for example, if you've been a real estate salesperson and you want to move into coaching, that you got to only talk about real estate sales. That's not what it means. Because if you've been a salesperson, you've probably developed a number of skills. Number one is you're good at persuasion. Number two is you're good at problem solving, that sort of thing. We got to identify what are some areas you're good at. And then we got to identify some people that have those types of problems that skill set can solve. So as an example, there was a young man who was a a real estate agent, and he came to us. He wanted to become a coach, and he was already becoming a coach, but he was having some problems with it. So first, he was working just with real estate teams on selling. But I said, listen, you can work with real estate teams. It's no problem there, but you don't want to help them with selling. That's not what you like. He goes, yeah, you're right. It's not. So he wanted to teach them all about team building and how to create a great culture. And he had built a team and he had an understanding of culture. So his focus went on team building and culture building. And that worked really, really well. He was able to go from basically very little business, $20,000, $30,000 a year, to 10 times that, like $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year. That becomes possible and became possible in his case because he was able to look at his background and extract from it, with our help, elements of his expertise that could help him solve a very real problem that a lot of these business owners had. And doing that allowed the business to soar. You know what I'm saying? And that was really, really powerful and important. So if someone's listening to the show and they're relatively new in business, well, start to think about your background, what you've done. And, one of the things you can do is if you want to delve into it more deeply, I can offer for anyone listening to the show a complimentary, success call where we can go delve into that. I'll offer it to, as many as 10 people. That's about as many as I'll be able to fit in time-wise who want to take a look at that. We got to figure out what your background is and what your expertise has been, and then take that and see if we can help you use that to go out there and get business, right? So once you've done that, then you got to find out who has that problem and who needs to solve that problem right away. And that's how you go forward. You go look for people who have the problem that you solve the best and have it in a very acute way. They need to solve it yesterday. Like if you're in business, as an example, Swire, and let's say you're making $1 million a year, you may want to make 10 million a year. But if $1 million a year is good, and you don't feel the need to solve it, it's an idea, a nice idea, you're not going to take any action to go from 1 million to 10 million. You know what I mean? The only way you'll take action to go from 1 million to 10 million is if you're very dissatisfied with 1 million. Like if 1 million is almost an insult to you, you know what I mean? Then you're going to be motivated to act. But if 1 million's good, you're not going to be motivated to act. One of my mentors said it like this: an undisturbed prospect will not buy. An undisturbed prospect will not buy. People will only buy their way out of a serious problem. They don't buy their way into something, into a program.
Is this something that we can test? For example, let's say, the entrepreneur identify, a couple of expertise that he or she might have. Should we test it before we go, full on with it?
100%.
Because, sometimes, you will think that there's a problem that needs to be solved, but then others at that time might not think there's actually a problem within them, that needs to be solved. So, does it make sense, like in business wise?
Absolutely. In fact, I teach people to go test things out all the time. You have to test things out. If you don't test things out, you're toast, right? Because you'll spend all this time and money building something that no one wants to buy. That's a terrible idea. Absolutely terrible idea. You know what I mean? Okay.
Yeah. So, but I think, as the environment change and business economic change, and, I will give you an example, like before Marie Kondo, having the show on Netflix, teach you how to simplify and folding your life. I don't know that you can make a living telling people how to fold their clothes, and to become a professional. Now, it's actually a trend right now, people following that. So I think it's going back to going out the comfort zone. Maybe you have a unique expertise that really no one is doing that right now. I think it's kind of scary to be the first one out there, because, whatever that you do, maybe in fitness, maybe in folding clothes, maybe anywhere in business. So how would you encourage people to take the first step?
Buddy, that has got to be a decision they make. There are 4 qualities to a successful entrepreneur. The first one is decisiveness. You got to make a decision to say you're going for it. Nobody can give you that. That has to come from you, right? Second quality is commitment. You got to be in it to win it. You can't be in it, I'm going to try this, and then, if it works, great. If it doesn't, I'm out of here. No, you got to be in it to win it. Thirdly, you got to be coachable. You got to have mentorship and coaching. You got to take their advice, because your way doesn't work. If your way worked, you'd already have the results you wanted. And then fourthly, you need to be resourceful. You need to come up with the money, the time, the energy to make it happen. I'll tell you a little story from myself. About 10 years ago plus, I was married, and my then wife didn't want to be married to me anymore. I was completely taken by surprise. Maybe I shouldn't have been, but I was. And my life spiraled. My business started to tank. It was terrible. One day I went out to see a talk at a business conference, and the man who gave the talk, he was speaking to me, it seemed like. It really resonated with me. So I went at the end of his talk, I introduced myself, we chatted for a bit, and I said to him, here's my situation. And I said, I think maybe I should hire you. And he said, you could. He said, but here's the deal. My minimum fee is $5,000, and I get paid up front. I offer no guarantees and no refunds. And you got to understand, my business had completely tanked. I hadn't made money in months. I was sleeping on my mother's couch. That's how bad it was. So I told him all this, and he said, I figured that. He said, it doesn't matter. He says, what do you mean it doesn't matter? He said, it doesn't matter. And he said, I'm going to give you some free coaching. I said, okay, free coaching. I'm up for it. He said, it doesn't matter how much money you have or don't have right now. I said, it doesn't, because I thought that was all that mattered, right? He said, no, it doesn't matter at all. It matters how much longer do you want to stay in this shitty situation you're in? How much longer do you want to be suffering from making no money, sleeping on your mother's couch, and being embarrassed about it, not wanting to tell anybody? So I looked at him and I wanted to hit him, man, because that really hurt to hear that. You know what I mean? But he was right. So I said, give me a couple days. So I went off, and I back then I used to be a personal fitness trainer myself. And I had a really cool brand, but I wasn't doing well. I was talking to some guys that hadn't made up their minds, etc. So I approached these guys that had been talking to, who hadn't made up their mind, with a lot of urgency. And here's what I kind of said to them. I said, hey, I got good news. Like, what? I said, you're fat and you need to lose weight, and I'm broke and I need money. So I'm going to give you the deal of a century. Let's get you in shape. And they were like, they laughed. They said, okay, what's the deal? I said, half price. But here's the catch. You got to say yes now. You got to pay now. What's it going to be? And a couple of them said yes. So I gave me the money, and I went to see this guy, and I gave him $2,000, right? And he said, I was really proud of myself. And he said, I said 5. I said, oh my God. I said, listen, buddy, how many people have you given this little speech to? He said, over the years? I go, yeah, over the years. He said, 30, maybe 40. Like, that's good. How many of them, besides me, ever came back to you with any money? He said, oh, you're the first. I'm like, I'm the first. I said, okay, take my money. I'll sign a contract. I'll pay you the rest in 30, 60 days, whatever the case may be. So he did. The rest is history. Within 6 months, I'd made $100,000. I paid him off within a couple months. But I got resourceful. And I got resourceful because I became clear that my current situation was no longer acceptable to me. And I'm going to ask you this. Is your current situation acceptable to you? Are you tolerating a shitty situation that you shouldn't be tolerating anymore? Are you still sitting in debt? Are you still making less money than you deserve? Is your wife or husband upset because you live in a substandard house? Are you not taking vacations or taking crappy vacations? Are you fighting with your wife or your husband about money? Are you stressed out? Is your mind going at 1,000,000 miles a minute all the time? Do you wake up in the middle of the night with a feeling of dread and doom? Do Do you wake up in the morning and you're like, oh my God, I don't want to face the day? Are you suffering physically because you're not working out and the stress is getting to you physically? And if the answer to all these questions is more yes than no, holy shit, this is time. This is time. This is time. Let's do something about it. Let's get resourceful and let's not mess around. Like this is like junior level conversation for someone. What do I need to do to get motivated? If you're not motivated, get lost. Get motivated. That's your job, right? If it's to be, it's up to me. That's the most powerful thing you can say to yourself every single day.
So, Nicky, that's a great segment. For those of us who want to get change, especially our conversation is closer to the end of the year. That's people have extra motivation, right? Going to the new year, I have to do X. I have to change everything. So, and we're getting into personal situation where everyone is unique. So, for a listener who wanted to change, what's the best way to reach out to you?
I got a link called ecircleacademy.com/appointment. That's for the success call that I talked about earlier. That's the best way. If you own a business right now and you're struggling and you need to do something different, use that. Let's have that free conversation. You just want to get in touch in general, Nicky Billou on any social media platform, I'll accept it. If you say to me that you listen to me on a podcast, don't just, put your name out there if I don't know you. Just say, hey, I heard you on Swire's podcast, would like to connect. I'll connect with you. And, I've written a bunch of books. If you just go to Amazon and you type in Nicky Billou, all my books and my podcasts will show up. That's other way to get in touch with me as well.
Thank you so much for coming on to the show today, Nicky.
Swire, it's a pleasure and an honor. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
All right.